So last year you bought chicks that are now full-grown chickens, and as the days get longer, they're gonna start laying more and more eggs. And in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how I get the most chicks out of my hens. So there's a lot of things to keep in mind when you're trying to take your hens and get quality chicks out of them. But the quality of chicks that you're looking to get depends a lot on your breeding program. You should have some sort of breeding program. The level you want to go to depends on what your goal is in the end. Are you looking to get more meat birds because you are selling the meat? You might not care so much on making the perfect looking bird. You're going to focus more on the meat side of things. But I do encourage all of you, when breeding the American Bresse or any breed, to follow the breeding standard and try not to breed anything that doesn't meet the breeding standard. But if you're just breeding for meat, you don't need to be breeding in what they call trios, which is 2 hens and a rooster. You don't need to get down that small. Us here, we have 4 different breeding groups and do a spiral mating system to ensure that we have enough genetic diversity to keep breeding these birds without having to bring other birds in. We want a closed flock because we sell chicks and we're selling our genetics. But you don't necessarily have to do that. If you get stuck to where your genetics are kind of too tight and they're not producing good birds and you're seeing issues with certain things, you can always buy some more chicks or go out and buy another rooster to help ramp that up if you're just trying to produce meat for the table. But if you're trying to be 100% self-sustainable, you're gonna want to do a spiral mating system, really keep track of what you're breeding to what. So that's up to you on how far you want to go with your breeding portion. I'm not gonna get too into depth to that in this video because everybody's is a little different. You can do as little as just letting them run, right? Get rid of all your roosters that you don't like. You only need 1 rooster for every 10 to 12 hens. Get rid of any hens you don't like and let them free range. That's what the American Bresse love to do. So there's nothing wrong with that. You're just not going to advance your flock genetically as fast, or maybe at all, as what you can do doing something like a spiral mating system or breeding pairs or trios. So that's up to you on what level you want to be. Once you have that figured out, you're starting to get fertile eggs. You want to make sure that you're storing your eggs pointed end down. Your air sacs on the top, that needs to stay on the top, and that's what grows and gives the air to the chick as it hatches. So always pointed end down. Turn your eggs every day. So you would want to put them like this and then like this, and do that every day, which helps the embryo from sticking to the side of the shell. And depending on how serious you are about hatching, I don't find that that really saves a whole lot of chicks for you unless you're trying to save your eggs for a long period of time. So your first step in hatching eggs, once you start getting your eggs, is getting the right incubator. Now you can go down to the farm store and you can buy one of those styrofoam little giant incubators, and that's fine. You're gonna hatch chicks in that. It depends, how many eggs do you want to waste and throw away? You need to get a better incubator if you don't want to be throwing eggs away. So it's up to you on the quality of incubator you want to get. With that little giant incubator, you're only going to be able to hatch eggs once a month. And you can only save eggs for maximum of 2 weeks before you set them. So setting is referring to putting eggs in your incubator. So really you should be setting eggs every week to get your best result. And on top of that, remember, you don't want to set eggs the same day they were laid. So because your eggs have to be in the incubator for 3 weeks before they hatch, and then they're gonna be hatching for a day, 2 days, because you want those chicks to be nice and fluffy before you even open that incubator up. It's about a 4-week deal. So you're only setting eggs every 4 weeks, and you can only keep eggs for a week. So depending on how many hens you have and how many chicks you want to produce, for whatever that case is, whether you're putting them out to pasture and butchering the roosters, to sell locally, or like us, you're looking at selling chicks to other people. Just keep that in mind when you're buying your incubator. So we've teamed up with Sure Hatch. That's what our setter and hatcher are, our Sure Hatch incubators. And they do an amazing job and have an amazing hatch rate. And we have a link below where you can buy those from Indib Farm Supply. Use the code Homestead at checkout and that'll give you a discount, and we also get a little bit of a kickback from it for making this video. Sure Hatch does offer smaller incubators. So their smallest incubator holds 60 eggs, and that means that you can hatch 20 eggs per week. It definitely is ideal to be hatching eggs every week if you want to get the most chicks out of your hen. We got chicks hatching in this one right now. So there's a couple things to keep in mind when you set those eggs. When do you want them to hatch? So like us, we set our eggs on a Sunday afternoon, which means by Monday afternoon, they're gonna be plenty fluffy, dried out, ready to go into that box and make their travel through the post office to our customer. For us, it's very important to know when we wanna ship out the chicks and when we're setting our eggs, because that is the difference on whether your chicks are gonna make it to their destination or not. So for you, if you're not shipping chicks out or selling them, that might not be that big of a deal for you. To get chicks every week, you wanna be setting them on the same day, and then at day 18, you're gonna take those eggs and you're gonna put them in the hatching basket. Chicks will hatch, you're setting more eggs, it's a constant flow. It takes 21 days for a chick to hatch, so you think you only need 3 different incubators, because every week you're setting them, these ones hatch, you put new ones in, but it does not work that way. You actually need 4 different incubators if you're gonna do it that way. Say if you're setting eggs on a Sunday, that means you're not gonna be able to take the chicks out of the hatcher until Monday, so you can't set those eggs yet. So that would constantly push you back further and further. Like me, I got a setter, which is just an incubator with the turners in it, and then I have a hatcher, which is just an incubator with hatching baskets in it. So every Thursday I take eggs out of the setter and put them in the hatcher, and every Sunday I set new eggs. So it's not that complicated. You'll get in a rhythm of it, but it keeps things going. So Sure Hatch's smallest incubator, which I would encourage you to buy if you're serious about hatching eggs and getting the most out of your hens. You can set 20 eggs a week, so it has spots for 60 eggs, and then it has a basket in the bottom for you to hatch out 20 eggs a week. Now that same incubator, you can also run it and set all 60 eggs at once and put all 60 eggs down in the hatcher at once if you want to run it that way and only hatch out once a month. That's fine. But you have the option there. Before you go and set your eggs, you need to look at the shape, size, cleanliness, how porous the shell is. Sometimes you can get some shells that are really porous, and those never end up growing. And you can stick all these in your incubator and see if they hatch, that's fine. But number one, you're passing on genetics that you probably shouldn't be. And number two, most of those aren't gonna hatch anyways, so you might as well keep them, not set them, and eat them for breakfast. So on day 18, when you take your chicks out of the turner, or maybe you're turning them by hand if you bought the cheap little incubator, and that's fine too, but you're gonna stop turning them, you're gonna lay them on the floor of your hatching baskets or on the floor of the incubator. It is important after that to never open the incubator again. And a lot of people say that and you're like, whatever. No, that is the most important rule. Do not open it. You'll have chicks that get stuck in the shell and chicks that just look all gross looking when they come out. It is a very important deal, and to keep that humidity up there is very important. So once your chicks are all dried off and ready to go, you open that incubator up. You want to go ahead and get them in a brooder. When first starting out, the smaller the brooder, the better. You want them to be able to find the heat, find food, find water very easily. When you're hatching chicks every week, I'll put up to 3 weeks of chicks in the same brooder sometimes. They actually seem to do kind of better that way. They learn from the older ones where the food and water is, like they would learn from their mom. And I don't really have any problems with the older ones picking on them. Once you get 3 weeks old, they definitely should be moving on and not be with day-old chicks. To get the most out of your hens this summer, you definitely want to be keeping records on when you're putting eggs in the incubator, especially if you're doing that every week. You can easily forget what eggs you put where and when they should be going into the hatcher. They all end up just getting jumbled together, if you know what I mean. So you definitely want to mark each tray or each egg with a pencil if you're worried about that. Say you buy the smallest sure hatch incubator you can buy and you're setting 20 eggs a week. I would encourage you to candle those eggs every week before you set new eggs. So you're going to candle the last 20 you put in there. And what that'll do for you is some of those aren't going to be fertile. And if you can identify that by candling them, which will take some time for you to be able to tell, but you should be able to see veins and everything like that in the dark when you hold a light to the egg. 4 of those 20 eggs weren't fertile. You can throw those 4 eggs out, and now this week you can set 24 eggs. So if every week you candle all your eggs, you can max out the amount of eggs you're putting in them. To keep the setter portion of your incubator full is definitely a good thing. Not all your eggs are gonna hatch. As people have been saying for many years, don't count your eggs before they hatch, and that's very true. Some won't be fertile, some may die during incubation, some won't make it out of the shell. These are all things that are completely normal, but they're all things that you can work on. So if you're having more than 20% of your eggs die during the incubation process, you definitely have an issue that you need to look at, whether it's the feed you're feeding your hens, your incubator, the settings of your incubator, your humidity. A lot of times it's your external humidity and temperature. Like in here, we have the office heated up to 70 degrees, so that way these incubators don't have to work extremely hard to heat the inside. So I hope all these little tips helped you. I can go in depth more if you guys have any questions. I extremely appreciate every last one of you. We just reached 2,000 subscribers, and thank you to all of you who have bought chicks from us, or shirts, or some of you are part of our herd share if you're local. We really appreciate it. It means a lot to us. Let me know if there's anything else you guys want to see. Until next time, thank you.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Is that a great idea?